So Jesus, how long have you been working in after school?
I've been working with after school for almost a year. I started back in 2013, and this August is going to be my full year round.
Is that your first year as a site coordinator, or is that your first year working in any program?
Well, first year as a site coordinator, but working for the after school. So I've been actually in the field for around 8 to 9 years around.
Okay. Yeah. And so prior to becoming a site coordinator, were you at a high school?
I was attending the first year. I was attending at a high school, and then from there I went to elementary schools, and then I attended some summer schools as well.
Summer programming?
Yeah, summer programs as well.
Fantastic. How do you like high school?
I think it was very compatible. It was definitely a challenge, but it was a great experience because it allowed me to flourish in different areas that I thought I wasn't capable of doing. And at that point, I was able to make very mature decisions that pretty much pushed me to growing myself.
Jesus, let's talk a little bit about these enrichment clubs that you guys do out here. We know you have an exemplary assets program. You guys are the flagship of Fresno County. You've done a lot of turning around in this year that you've been here at the helm as site coordinator. From your perspective, what are the three most important elements for a high quality, engaging enrichment club?
There are several, but I think the primary one that I can always rely on is on myself. I think everything starts by who's leading this program. You need to be creative. You need to use creativity as the main element. Secondly, I would think of opportunities for socialization for students and pretty much expand into a multicultural society. And third, I would think that community outreach. So once you have an opportunity open for students, make sure to implement them. Showcase these students pretty much within the community, allow them to be well known with their community so students are more motivated to want to come, and community can actually be able to identify them by their work and be recognized by what they have learned.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned creativity. Talk to me about that. Are we talking creative planning, creative implementation, or just creative ideas for clubs?
I think everything starts from planning. So once you have the planning, pretty much when I'm thinking about creativity, you have to go above and beyond of what is already established, what is already known. So I personally have to think of, okay, what is it that this school doesn't have? What is something that the students at this point haven't pretty much had the opportunity to explore? So for instance, I was able to put a show together, which was a runway. Why wasn't it the runway? Because I thought, okay, Parlier, this is probably a small community with a high population of Latin culture, where there is not much about the arts. So I thought about the arts because I thought, okay, well, this is definitely a need. This is totally something that is fun, entertainment, and something that the students are going to be well benefit from. So the first resources was pretty much thinking about, okay, well, maybe a fashion show, because that won't require that much of the skills in a way, but it's going to upbring everyone's self-esteem, and it's going to be able to motivate students to want to stay with us in order for them to be recognized and be well known, and pretty much have a good grasp of where we stand with fashion and makeup or any sort of arts that can involve this type of shows.
So creatively folding in the performing arts, the visual arts. Great answer. I'm curious, for people that are out there that maybe aren't as familiar with culminating events, what's the benefit to an after-school program to plan a culminating event like a fashion runway show?
The culminating event, I think the best one that personally helped me was because I was able to bring not just the modeling class itself, but I was able to bring other classes at the same time together with this that pretty much tied up to just one event in particularly. So when I thought of what classes am I going to offer, I thought, okay, how many classes do I need that I can split all this work from this show into somebody doing something, and then they can all expose this show together. So all from photography, from modeling, to I was interested on the dancing class also, which is we also had it, but it was like a kind of okay, but I was still there. It was still offered because I wanted my students to be the openers of the show. I wanted them to be the ones showcasing pretty much all this event.
So the fashion runway show was more or less, it was a community-wide culmination, but you were able to fold in other clubs from photography, as you say, dance, into it. So it's a platform for all your kids to showcase their talents. That's fantastic. You know, one of the things you mentioned there is about opportunities for socialization and creating a multicultural society. Tell me a little bit more about that in the context of your assets program. How are you accomplishing that challenge?
On socialization-wise, I think we're all aware that within our youth, for the most part, there is a lot of loneliness. So we wanted to expand activities that will allow students to interact with each other without them even knowing that they're actually interacting with others and becoming part of their society. Maybe sometimes students feel left out. Maybe not everybody has a talent to be in a dance class. Maybe not everybody is interested about technology, but there's some student that is just interested about sitting down and reading a book and talking about each other. So this is I try to have a class that will allow each student to fit in one of each of those classes.
That's good. So you're really appealing to their personal interests, but also, you know, their social emotional needs as well.
That is correct.
Now, in terms of community outreach, I saw the press, the print articles on the fashion runway show. Really impressed with the level of community support you were able to obtain for the high school program. Is it your experience that there's certain enrichment clubs that kind of lend themselves to getting more community involvement through outreach?
Yes, definitely. I think it's always a key, and it's an element for after-school programs that a lot of the times we just have to do that little bit of extra work in order to reach out to people that are actually willing to do anything for education. In this case, I was very fortunate that I had all my friends who are participants of different forms of art, all from designers to dancers, photographers. Everybody was willing to support me in this project. So everyone pretty much was able to be part of this event. Even local businesses, small local businesses that you wouldn't thought they have the resources. Even then, they were very supportive with us in this particular event.
Give us an example of like a small business, a mom and pop business that got involved in this event.
Our security guard in our school, he has a small business with printing, which is the screen printing. So he was able to provide like 10 pieces of his own work just to be displayed in the runway.
When it comes to, you know, deciding what enrichment clubs to offer, and you've touched on those key elements there, how do you go about getting youth voice and choice, you know, finding out what their interests are, what their needs are? How do you do that?
The primarily ones the ones I try to do on a daily basis is just stepping out of my office and talking to students. Sometimes I come and play volleyball with them in their class. I sometimes go into the weightlifting and just talk to them as they're working out. I ask them, what are the things that you guys would like to have, like in a time like this? Do you want to see mirrors? Do you want to see photos? Do you need water? What is it that you need in order for you to stay coming on a daily basis with us? I normally just try to have formal conversations with them. And secondly, I always serve them as well. I provide them questionnaires, you know, in a more formal way. And ask them what are the classes that you guys would like to see, and I make a division of what is called traditional and non-traditional classes. For the traditional classes are the ones that we normally see already on schools. For instance, I would say dance, singing, guitar. I will consider all those things traditionals. And then I have the other portion that is called non-traditional, which involves sports from archery, maquettes, or interior design, or window displays. Just stuff like that are just not too common on the after schools.
And what do you find with the information you get back from kids on surveys? Do they prefer the non-traditional or the traditional, or?
They want non-traditionals. A lot of them were very interested in the non-traditional ones, and it's something that I'm actually at this point working forward into how am I going to bring these classes and provide the needs of our students or their interest.
So that's always the next step, right? So how do you go about using the information you gather on surveys about what kids want or are interested in and making that happen? Because I imagine if they like non-traditionals, it's a little harder to get staff that could provide resources to you know, carry out non-traditional activities versus the things that are already happening here on campus, right?
Yes, that is correct. That is a completely set new plan, and that's something that I'm actually working on right now with my administration into, first of all, looking what we have at this point. And is there anything that any of the stuff that we can use on a versatile level? And then if we could, then we use the stuff. If not, then we're definitely looking forward into bringing, hopefully, these new activities and ideas.
Are there any other formal or informal strategies that you guys employ to get youth voice and choice?
Yes, we also use the dropout box. So we leave that primarily in, we call them urban areas, like for instance, our library and our front office, even my office, or pretty much where the students' cafeterias, pretty much where students are gathered for the most part. And we normally check that on like every 2-3 months, pretty much just to see are the students responding, are they participating, are they looking for something interesting for that particular month or not. So that's another.
So urban areas. So that's like high traffic areas, huh? Like where the kids would frequent. That's
Yes.
a good strategy. Are the kids using that? Do they drop in recommendations?
Yeah, they had been dropping, like for instance, I had seen a lot of classes that are interested, like cooking and beauty stuff, like hairstyling and makeup, design. All those are classes that are interested.
When it comes to these enrichment clubs, could you tell us and the viewers what are your like top three? What are your greatest hits of enrichment clubs at the PAW program?
Last semester, I was able to have the modeling class. I was very, very proud of this class. Why? Because I never thought I was going to have a good result or turn out within the community. Once again, I would like to reemphasize that we are in a very small community with a higher population of Latin culture. So I was even afraid that not even females were going to be able to want to participate because of several reasons. But I was fortunate enough that by just myself stepping out and talking to students, I had a great turnout of males. It was a big number of students that participated, and for which is I consider a great activity because we were able to extend it and combine it with other classes, for instance, photography. We were able to expand that curriculum, that particular lesson plan. In the lesson plan, we were able to incorporate other groups, for instance, photography. Photography was able to come and take pictures of our student models as they were learning how to walk, as they were learning how to pose, as they were learning angles or lights or how to use certain proportions of their body and stuff like that at a different landscaping or school around with different wear. So all that was expanded through that curriculum, through that particular plan. And in addition to that, we also have a Freaks Club. Freaks Club, it's a mind games, board games pretty much that I think they are based from European designers or creators. So those classes at this point are the ones that have been bringing a lot of students into our classes.
Any other classes you wanted to share out as being part of the greatest hits list?
Yes, I also have another one that is a ready control class. We also have that right now, where it's pretty much students put together some little cars. They're racing cars. I don't know the speed specifically, but I know they're pretty popular within their.
So we're talking remote control cars here?
Remote control cars, that is correct. So they have batteries, and then pretty much students put them together, and they create their own competitions and races and all this stuff.
Of course, after talking about what are the best classes, what are some of the challenges that you encounter, when trying to implement quality enrichments for your high schoolers?
I think the primary challenge that I had always faced is finding a space, so inadequate facilities. So not having the space a lot of the times is a one-star limitation. Because if we don't have the space, then we're very unfortunate we cannot offer the classes that our students want or the things that we would like to see in our program. In addition to that, we're always looking into personnel. Who are the people that are going to teach those classes? A lot of the times we don't have people that are versatile or that could teach some of these areas within where we already have them established for it. So that's another of the challenge. Another thing is the culture that is established already. A lot of the times there is already a culture that has been established, and then we have to change the mind of our students in order for them to start engaging into the new aspects and the new perspectives or ideas that we are trying to bring into the community.
Talk to me about the facilities. I mean, I walk on your campus here. I see you guys have a dedicated office. You guys have some dedicated classroom space, access to library. What are some of those specific facility requests that maybe just aren't on the table? And how do you go about getting facilities or getting creative with facilities for your classes?
At this point, I wanted to present a musical. I was very interested about presenting a musical within the past months. Unfortunately, I couldn't proceed with it because there was no facility. We don't have a theater at this point. We have a very small cafeteria, and that's being used with another school. We share our cafeteria. So within that, I wanted to have an outdoor theater, which is we thought, okay, we could rent a stage, we can have our still show outside, and just think out of the box, make everything happen, even when we don't have the things what we would like to have. But looking into the weather and inconveniences and stuff like that, so that's another fact that we couldn't proceed that way.
It's either very hot here or
very cold.
Very cold and rainy.
Correct.
Good example. Thanks for clarifying that. And when it comes to personnel, I mean, that's one of the things I'm noting when I look at your schedule and I walk through your classroom enrichments. The staff seem to be very engaging, and some of them I would even say kid magnets. How do you go about keeping a fresh stock of talented staff, and how do you create the space for staff to really pour themselves into the programming?
The main and key element that I try to always use is allow people to flourish on their own and be themselves. I try to not be what is called a boss to them. I try to just be there whenever they need my help and whenever they need an extra support. But other than that, I trust them completely, and this is why they're working here with us, because I want them to be able to be capable of doing everything on their own without having to be always told what to do. Because at that perspective, I think we're losing already the purpose of having fun within our students. If I allow them to be themselves, if I allow them to just do whatever they want, obviously we're always under supervision and everything in consideration, things that are very important in education, then not breaking any of those rules, then I think everybody follows a good lead with that.
And I know when you describe like the fashion design, runway, and dance, I see your own passions reflected in some of the programmatic elements you have here at the Parlier High School program. Is that by design? Is that something that you encourage your staff to? Because you have an interest in dance, you have an interest in theater and performing arts. Do you have your staff kind of reflect on what it is they could bring to the program?
Yes, that is completely correct. For the most part, I try to set my expectations. I always tell my staff, we want to make sure that we're doing the best or we don't do nothing at all. From that perspective starting, I always try to make sure that we're all doing 110% at everything we do within our students. Because I think this is what has been giving us a good feedback from our students coming back to us. Because students are not expecting to just see any poor activity. They want to see something that is above and beyond. They want to experience something that they probably have never had or may not be able to ever have in their lives. So this is something that I had always tried to encourage my staff. Please make sure that at all times we're going to be able to implement at 110% with each of our students.
Jesus, one particular challenge that a lot of older youth programs struggle with in these tight fiscal times is working with a shoestring budget. Can you talk a little bit? You mentioned facilities and how you get creative there. How have you gotten creative and resourceful around getting the resources you need, the materials and supplies to pull programming off?
I think budgets are always a problem, and so this is something I always try to not even think about, that I actually have it available to me. The first thing that I took a look to is, what do I have at this point? If there is nothing around, I always start looking at my connections. What are my connections? What is my network? I start looking into collaborating with other schools within the district. What other schools could possibly help me with? So those are some of the things that I've been bringing at this point with collaborating into our program and making everything happen without even having to touch our budgets.
All right, why don't we get started here at Tioga Middle School? Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your program?
Well, my name is Alfredo Gutierrez, and I run the after-school program for Tioga Middle School, and we see about 180 students a day.
And what organization are you with? Do you work at the school during a regular day?
We're through Fresno County, and we are funded through the ACES grant.
When you think about what elements go into quality enrichment clubs to make them engaging for young people, what are the secret ingredients in your book?
I believe that an enrichment club, it needs to be unique, something different, an experience that the students will receive, not something that they can get somewhere else, offer them something that they look forward to that they can't receive anywhere else.
What are your top 3 enrichment clubs?
Our top 3 enrichment clubs are the rock band. We also have a nitro racing class and our recording studio. I would say those are the top 3 classes we offer.
Now, in your opinion, what's made them so successful?
They made them, they're successful because they are clubs that the kids seem really interested in. We offer them through the entire year, so we build upon them as we go on through the year. And a lot of them are clubs where the kids can actually go out and perform, or their material that they produce is sent out to other organizations and other people listen to and critique.
Now, when you think of the challenges that get presented when offering clubs like these, what are a few that come to mind?
The main challenge is finding the right talent to teach that class. So we interview a lot of people when we're looking for a specific instructor for a class, but we don't mind doing that as long as we find the right talent and the right fit for Tioga Middle School.
So when it comes to the challenges like finding talent, are there any agencies, any partners that help you to cultivate that talent, identify it, recruit it, retain it, plug it in?
Definitely. We are currently working with Teaching Fellows, heavily working with Teaching Fellows, which is an organization through Fresno State. Actually, they work with a variety of the colleges here in Fresno, but they help to bring a lot of that talent into our school.
And, we're always talking about like how, we're in a fiscal drought. These are tight economic times. A lot of programming has to be done on a shoestring budget. Do you have any recommendations for other site leads and coordinators out there working in the tight constraints? How to be resourceful? I
recommend that whatever club they decide to go with, they build upon it, buy a couple of resources or materials and supplies that are or can be used over and over again. And that way you keep building on those materials and supplies, and eventually you'll have everything needed for that club, and you'll get to a point where you have a surplus of materials and supplies for that club.
So first off, why don't we get started? Just go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Kevin Campuzano. I'm a student at Tioga Middle School.
How long have you been attending the Tioga After-School program?
For 2 years and I believe 1 quarter because of sports.
2 years and 1 quarter. So I take it you're 8th grader. This is your last month in the program.
Yes.
So then you're an expert on the after-school program here, right?
Yeah, you can say that.
You're not only a student here, you're also a customer of the after-school program. What's the best part of the after-school program here?
I could say the staff because they're polite. I like how they communicate with each other. I like how they communicate with the students, and I like how they treat us and provide us with all the equipment we might need.
So when you talk about communicating with the kids, communicating with each other, how would you characterize that communication? Describe it. What makes it good?
What makes it good is, for example, if a teacher says he has a problem of for the studio, he needs some earphones. Like my director, Mr. Gutierrez, could talk to the studio guy and just communicate and say what they might need or what they need to use.
So there's just that quickly they could just ask and you shall receive. I gotcha. Recently, Tioga Middle School was honored by having participated in this Learning and After School and Summer Digital Badge project.
Yeah.
Could you talk about what was your role in that project?
Well, I just like demonstrating my school and just talking about how it's amazing. I really like it, and how many people, I think all people should come to Tioga After School. It's pretty nice, and I love it.
And with this badge project, did they have you observing program? Did they have you scoring your program?
Yes, actually, they had me observe all the classes and score them with all the five badges of the meaningful and all those.
Here's a test. Do you remember all five?
I believe is meaningful, expanding horizons, active, yes, and force mastery, wow,
And collaborative. Now, specifically of the five, and that's what was cool, is manageable because you only had to look for one of them. Which one did you pick?
expanding horizons.
All right. So, in your observations through this digital badge project, what were some of the things that you noted and told the adults about?
I told them how they were engaged with the whole programs and stuff, and so they could take part of the action, and so they could get better of what they like and love.
All right. So, in your observations through this digital badge project, what were some of the things that you noted and told the adults about?
I told them how they were engaged with the whole programs and stuff, and so they could take part of the action, and so they could get better of what they like and love, and how they could just advance in their skills.
So we're sitting here today inside of the recording studio. This is the audio booth here. What do you think about this recording enrichment club, and how is it maybe meaningful for kids to participate in here? What kind of things do they get to do?
Oh, actually, I love this. Like one of my favorite classes, cause in pardon of all we have also DJ sets, and which those are amazing also. And for the kids that have talent, like to sing, they could come in here, show their vocals, and so they could relieve their shyness, cause many people don't like to sing in front of other people. And,
I know I wouldn't.
Yeah, and that's how they could get prepared and stuff, get more interactive with many people.
So they get to sing. They're on the DJ turntables. So Kevin, for people watching this webinar at home or at their office in their own after-school program, what do you want them to know about your Tioga Middle School after-school program?
That's really fun, exciting. You could spend time with your friends, bond with even teachers. They're pretty nice. All of us here are great and nice and peaceful.
Very cool. Now, if there was maybe one thing that you'd want to tell your coordinator that maybe they could improve about this program, what would it be?
To probably get more people into it, and they could be more even bigger classes and even more classes to add on, not just some typical 10 or 7 classes. It could be up to 15 classes. That'll be nice.
Nice. Good recommendation. Thank you, Kevin.
I'm trying to talk to you, but let's hope I make it through.